Hi, everybody. This is Alex Krainer. Please follow Crypto Rich. He is one of the best in his business, pioneer of ending wars through tax non-compliance. Oh, fuck it.
Hey, Tom. Hey, Alex. Hey, Ian. Thank you so much, guys, for agreeing to do this. And this was Ian's suggestion because he said, listen, how about getting the four of us together? Well, really, it's the three of you. And I'm just grateful that I have the opportunity to learn from you all. I'll have all the links to you guys in the description below. And I do recommend people follow. And also, please do subscribe to my new channel, Crypto Rich Politics. And Ian, you and I just had a 90-minute conversation, close to 90-minute conversation with Graham Moore, English constitutional lawyer, fabulous, fabulous guy, and a fount of lots and lots of knowledge. And here we are, half an hour later. Who would like to start? It's Friday the 28th of November at 7 minutes past 8. Who wants to start? Where shall we go?
Not me.
Let Alex start.
Yeah.
We got to get him warmed up.
Well, where do we start? I think things have gotten a little bit interesting lately. The news cycle feels like it's starting to pick up a little bit.
Yeah.
And what the news today is that Andriy Yermak resigned after his offices and his apartment were raided by the anti-corruption police in Kiev. So that's extremely interesting because I think he was the man in charge, really. Zelensky was the actor.
Yeah.
I think Andriy Yermak was the real deal there, and he's out.
Zelensky's chief of staff.
Yeah, head of his presidential office. I don't know what the official name of his function is.
And this was from the Anti-Corruption League that he embezzled away at least $100 million.
Yeah.
That's the excuse. That's the excuse.
That's the excuse, because it's funny, because a few weeks ago, the Anti-Corruption League started getting active and making some noise. So who's behind them?
It's the U.S. military.
It's the U.S., yeah.
Yeah, the U.S. military command in there, and they are going through everything. Now, why are they going through everything? They couldn't give F all. Caught myself there, right? They couldn't give F all about corruption. What they care about is what might harm us.
Right.
Sorry, what they care about is what?
What might harm us.
Oh, right.
What information, what relationships, right? So one of the key things in these types of conflicts is very few of these people who stole all this money ever get to live long enough to spend a penny of it for very long after the whole action's done. They suddenly start to drop dead of heart attacks, car accidents, et cetera, right? Yeah. That's how those games played. Yeah.
And then General Flynn tweeted something interesting that the U.S. has to recover all these funds that were stolen, and we're talking tens of billions, not billions, not 100 million. 100 million was just like the tip of the iceberg, enough to wreck the Ukrainian government practically completely.
Yeah.
But then, where did all this money get laundered to? And I think that they're going to have all of the receipts.
It's the war chest. This is the war chest that was put together to cause civil war in the UK and in the US. It's the war chest for the war against the US. And so, Tom, you and I talked about this some time ago, but the orders of operation, right? The final is you go after the wealthy elites and the banking. So, yeah. No, Alex, that's a brilliant place to start.
Yeah. And let's just, I hate to jump the shark a little bit, but here we are the day after Thanksgiving here in the United States, one of the lowest liquidity market days of the year. And, deep while everybody's in carb coma and tryptophan coma after Thanksgiving, the CME stops trading. The COMEX stops trading. One of the most overly redundant systems on the planet just stops, quoting futures around the world. Now, I was just chatting with my good friend Vince Launchy about this, to get a sense of what was going on. And I'm like, it's, and interesting also, by the way, that Andrew Maguire on a show on Tuesday or Wednesday of this week called out that the COMEX was going to fail. You think? Wow. And now we have all the CCP related guys like piling on, and we have the so there's a lot going on here. Everybody's pulling pins. There's grenades being pulled everywhere, and I think the CME, going dark for a few hours, and of course, once we come back from they turn the machines back on again, they realize that you can't keep them shut down because it will literally cause a global financial collapse because you start breaking collateral chains across every market.
Yeah.
We're staring at 42.50 gold and $56 silver. And coming into the end of the week, which would also be the end of the month, we're going to have a monthly close on Sunday. Today is both the weekly and the monthly close. So these are technically significant as well. And this would normally be the day where they try to beat the markets back into submission, if not try to demoralize week longs in the futures markets. And I think that was the intent, obviously, of shutting down the market last night and then bringing it back up this morning. They finally do get it back up and running for whatever reason, and whoever actually gave that order, right? Blaming it on a cooling failure is ridiculous. They have literally 5 layers of cooling redundancy to the data centers for the CM for the.
I used to build data centers. Yeah,
the Comex and the Globex. So that's nonsense. That's horse shit. All right. Yeah. Oh, sorry, horse pot. Horse pot. Yeah, there you go. I think horse shit. It just doesn't sound right. Not coming out of my mouth. So Alex, you were going to say?
I think that the Duke brothers got flat-footed in the market and they had them close down the machines.
I think it's something like that.
I think it's not so much that. What I think it is that we pulse the corruption thing, which goes to where's all this money at, what assets it's in, and then we do another signal pulse into gold and silver markets by shutting off, tripping the breaker. Mm-hmm. And then what are you doing? You're looking to see what are the downstream problems from that. Mm-hmm. And then you're doing them. You guys are familiar with Markovian, right? Markovian blankets, Markov chains, Markov kernels, right? Yes, no.
Explain for the audience just to make sure
I know all about it, but the viewers don't know. And Alex doesn't know either.
Yeah. So Markovian is something is moving that I can see. The easiest way of saying it, right? Something's moving that I can see because I know its connections and dependencies, but I can't see what's moving those. Mm. But I can interpolate with higher confidence what is moving up. What is the signal I can't see based off the perturbations and the signals that I can see that I do have mapped out. And I probably have these mapped out 2 to 3 layers of dependencies. Most of these really sophisticated things happen out in the 5, 6, 7 layers of dependencies, right? So Markovian blankets, kernels, chains, all of it is the right way to look at it. So what I suspect is by tripping that, so sending the pulse of, we're going to go out, Alex, what you said, we're going to go after these ill-gotten gains. And then you shut down a market and look, well, who's trying to move physical what, where, and who's got caught on that, who got trouble, and who made phone calls to who, to how to cover what, etc. That's a Markovian-like process where you might not have been able to know exactly, Alex, to your point, or Alex, to your point, or Tom, to your point, you don't always have exact receipts where so-and-so did such and such at such and such time. Often you have is, well, this dependency is tied to this dependency, tied to this dependency. And if I see these signals, then I suspect that here's the area I need to go now narrow in and execute this next level of signals in some other dependent market or some other bank. Like one of the other interesting things, and Tom and Alex, you guys know this far better than me, but wasn't there a substantive amount of money just dumped through the Fed, dumped into our banking system here? Like
when
50 billion or 150 billion or something just in the last few days.
Not that I saw. I didn't see that. Now I do know that like the Bank of England is constantly having to do repos in order to keep itself from seizing.
So
seizing up.
Yeah. So most of this ill-gotten gains in all of its forms, right? Not just Ukraine, but Operation Maxwell Epstein going back before Epstein, right? Most all of this goes through banks and certain banks. And banks are going to hit, they're going to take a hit anytime you're going to go after ill-gotten gains or unearned liquidity in any way. And so you're going to open the window for your, certain banks. You're going to make sure that they have the liquidity they need for that one day, that 24, 48, 72-hour window they need as you go and break some dependency somewhere. And as you guys know, it's all flows, right? Capital flow, right? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say is one of these things, breaking the COMEX like this on a Friday, and then watching the spasm in the market.
Yeah,
gold, silver got hit on the reopen hard, and then immediately reversed and went to new highs, which is not what I think anybody was expecting, or But here we are at the end of the week and end of the month. It's Friday. We go to bed on Friday night with gold trading at 42.50, silver trading at 56. What event is going to happen this Sunday? Because let me set the Wayback Machine to 2011, when silver hits $50 an ounce in the overnight market. We go to bed on Friday afternoon. It's like trading at $45. I remember this clear as day because I was in the market at that point. Market opens up 47, 48, 49. We're going towards $50. And then they announce that Osama bin Laden's been killed. And the market immediately crashes. And that was the peak in the silver market in 2011. So what I'm getting at here is that, and it's the same, we see this over and over again. We go to bed on a Friday, we wake up on a Monday, and the state of the markets have changed because something is then agreed to and organized in the overnight. OPEC Plus in March of 2020 says, nope, we're not cutting production in the face of global demand for lockdowns over COVID. Oil, we go to bed on Friday afternoon, oil's trading in the 80s. We wake up Monday morning, it's trading in the 40s. And that's what set in motion everything financial in the surrounding COVID. Okay. We see these events over and over again. So what we should start looking for now is, are each one of these little discontinuous events, these failures, as it were. You know, we can do the same thing with Lehman Brothers, right? Go back to 2008. On Friday afternoon, there's worries about Lehman Brothers. By Sunday, this always happens between Friday afternoon and Sunday. And if there was ever going to be a time when there was going to be a fundamental and structural attack on the integrity of Western markets, it would be right now, because it's the easiest way to get the most amount of movement, especially 2 weeks before the next Federal Reserve meeting, as we come into the end of the year.
It's also effectively, Tom, to your point, it's also effectively year-end.
Yes.
Because, the end of November, month end is really effectively year-end in the financial system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, December trading is always odd. So I've just been started to think of. I was thinking about these. I've been thinking about these things for the last couple of weeks, and so when I saw this last night, I'm like, oh, the COMEX shut down. Well, normally you'd like, oh my God, the COMEX shut down. I'm at the point now where I'm like, I'm so friggin' cynical. I'm like, it doesn't even faze me anymore. I mean, my blood pressure doesn't even go up. I just look at it and go, okay, so what does that mean? So now the question is the following: who did this and why? And one of the things that EM just said, I thought was really interesting, because it had me thinking, okay, my first thought, of course, because this is the way I'm wired now, and I know I can help, that Alex has helped me along these lines, which is to say, okay, so London is attacking the validity of the COMEX by getting somebody domestic to shut it down. But something that EM said about, hey, let's poke this and see what it does, could have just as easily been the Americans poking to see just how exposed London is shut down in the CME. And so I could see it from either direction. And, then I have to start, I'm watching all the various players, and they are all coming out and making their commentary today. And that's what I was talking to Vince with before we started recording. And we were talking about, various people that we interact with on a regular basis, and who do we think maps to this and that and everything else, and who we think works for whom, basically. And I had to put, I had to map somebody to a different player and take them out of the Chinese camp and put them in the London camp. And it became a very interesting new set of analysis and conclusions when I did that. I'm not saying it's true. Again, these are speculations and hypotheses, because we're doing the data dependency. We're doing the dependency thing. And we're doing that from the perspective of how they react to these things, and then knowing that they work for somebody, what narrative are they trying to sell? And because they're trying to sell that narrative, that helps you map the space. Throwing it out there.
What happened in the United States this week with 6 politicians calling straight up for sedition? And how are these two things associated? Because I don't think they're not related. Now, one of the things I will say is that we don't have Krugerrands or bearer bonds anymore, and we're, at least the 3 of us, are old enough to remember what those are. Maybe the 4 of us, right? So when you are going to do some major clandestine covert operation, you pay for that in gold or silver.
And in modern markets, you also and Bitcoin.
Well, yes, but Bitcoin's not as maybe not
It's
what
not. It's
people
not the
think.
same. It's not the same thing. But the attack on Bitcoin over the last couple of weeks also stinks.
Could be absolutely related. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they are absolutely related. But yes.
But I wonder, and Alex, I don't know what's happening out there in the world that you're looking at, but these two things, this happening, the COMEX thing happening, silver, again, people need to understand silver's, yes, I understand it's an industrial metal, but for two economies in the world, it was their dominant metal for centuries, the British and the Chinese specifically, right? And so it's still heavily weighted in their systems, but I don't think these two things are separate. I think the sedition statements, the calling for basically a straight up coup in the U.S. military, I think the assassinations, basically the National Guardsmen here, and this COMEX thing are all related.
Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
I agree.
And I, in some ways, perhaps tenuous, the Ukraine peace plan.
Oh, of course.
That's related to it as well, because they want the grip to continue. Yeah. And just something that was said earlier, and Alex, if you want to comment on this as well as what Ian said. So they want to find where the money has gone, the conveyor belt, the grift, into the pockets of the warmongers in the European Union, the US, the UK, the politicians, including the politicians who've enriched themselves with the blood of Slavic people. Again, yes.
Again.
Alex?
Well, I tend to think that the defeat in Ukraine is probably going to be the biggest factor, but I'm not sure how much I want to read into the CME outage, because it's not like this never happened before. This happened in 2024 in April 2024. Then it happened again in July of 2021, a couple of hours. In 2013, a couple of hours. And in 2008, September, a couple of hours. So I don't know if that means something. I mean, obviously it's making the markets nervous. Obviously it's not right. And I think that the factors that are making people extra nervous is that you have this almost vertical climb in in gold and silver. But meanwhile, I'm looking at the prices of European bonds and the prices of British bonds. Nothing.
Nothing. The bond markets aren't reacting to any of this stuff.
Yeah, the bond markets are not reacting. So
who does it hurt, Alex? So I have a question for you, Alex, given what you're saying, right? But did we not start the Ukrainian effort in roughly 2005? 2014 was the Maidan coup, but we were already in there with,
Well, it depends how you cut it. You could say that it started in 1991.
Of course,
because that's when NATO already went in there. They started
displacing
informal cooperation with the Ukrainians, and then in I think 1997 they finally signed a formal agreement on distinctive partnership in Madrid at the NATO summit, and then it built from there. And then you had in 2003 or 2004, I forget exactly. You had the Orange Revolution when they brought Viktor Yushchenko to power, who was like through and through an establishment central banker guy. And everybody hated him in Ukraine, but in the West, everybody was braying about, democracy, look how wonderful. And that failed. That really didn't, because Yushchenko was so, he would make Keir Starmer look popular by comparison.
Wow.
And it was like a complete train wreck. And then in 2014, you had the coup, and then they started earnestly weaponizing Ukraine for the war against Russia. I don't know who gets hurt, but I guess like if you're short gold and silver, you're not a happy camper today.
Yeah, no.
But I can't tell if this is some kind of a big play. I think that the big plays are the mounting psyops against Trump, because they're like, all out. They're all out. I mean, I watched this ridiculous. I forget the guy's name. One of these famous American anchors on ABC, I think, who went yesterday. Oh, Trump is declining physically and
Oh, yeah, no, it was Lawrence O'Donnell. It was Lawrence O'Donnell.
Lawrence O'Donnell, thank you. Yeah,
who's truly insane, by the way.
But you know, the funny thing is that they're like, he declined by 39%. Yeah, not 40, not 38, 39%.
That's Madison Avenue. You always do 19.99, right? Instead of $20, you do $19.99.
Yeah, but I think, you know, like maybe we're meant to be impressed that this is all, like, you know, scientifically quantified.
Yeah.
And then everybody goes like, oh my God, did you see Trump declined 39%? And so like maybe now it's going to be like with the, you know, like with the pandemic, how many people were infected every day? They're going to go with the number like, oh my God, Trump declined by 42%. And us like 45%. Oh my God, like they're going to open like one of those like, how do you call that, betting market?
Polling market.
Polling market. It's going to be like, oh, how soon is Trump going to be at 50%? So it's like it's going to become a thing. Yeah. But the thing, you know, this is actually quite more nefarious than it appears, because the thing that's fascinating me for as long as I've been in the markets is the groupthink. Mm-hmm. And groupthink is a really, really fascinating thing, because
madness of crowds. Yeah.
No, not madness of crowds, not at all. What I'm referring to. Because I started as an oil market analyst. And at the time, you know, I spent a lot of time reading all these, you know, you had all these institutions out there like the Oxford Associates and Deutsche Bank, Alex Brown, and who were periodically publishing oil markets reports, you know, and, you know, like supply, demand, projecting, forecasting into the future, blah, 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 you know. And I noticed after a while that their forecasts would always be, you take the current price and then, you know, a couple of dollars above it or a couple of dollars below it, always. Mm-hmm. I thought, what's up? Does nobody have like a bolder prediction, like maybe way low, half or double or 50% or something? What it is these people have, for some reason, a certain reputation. And so these are not stupid people, right? But imagine like if, let's say, oil's trading at $60 a barrel now. And so somebody asks you, where's it going to be in 2 years? And you say, oh, in 2 years, it's going to be like 65 to 70. And maybe in 2 years, it's going to be 150. And maybe there's some, you know, renegade economist in there who says like, it's going way past $100. They will never publish it. Yeah. Because if you're right, you're going to look like a genius, but you're not going to gain anything much from it other than, you know, attention. But if you're wrong, you shredded your reputation. Right. Okay, so that's groupthink. When, you know, like you determine that you're going to, it's like conformity to the group. Mm-hmm. You know, all the experts are here. I better freaking not be anywhere outside of this band, right?
Yep.
Because you see it in the gold market as well, Alex. Like
you see it everywhere. Absolutely, you see it everywhere.
The big call for gold is when one of the major banks goes, "It's going to be up $200 next year." Like that's telling you that it's actually going to move $1,000. And when just to give you an idea, like the
right,
how spineless these oil analysts are, saying, "Oh,
no, but it's not
$5." It's ridiculous. It moves $7 a week.
Yeah, but I wouldn't even call him spineless. It's just how it is. It's just in the human nature that most of those people want to conform to the group, especially if they have something to lose. Yeah. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is not gold and silver or oil prices. The reason is because I've noticed that a group thing is forming around Trump. And so everybody's beating up on Trump. Everybody's piling in. And I'm not, and I get a whole lot of shit from, you know, the feedback is negative. Like, and you know, people are nice. They say you give Trump too much credit, you know, so that's nice. But, you know, in the past, I had some people call me a Q-tard and stuff like that. You know?
I'm getting it today. Now I'm getting it from Robert Barnes. He's calling me a Q-tard. It's hilarious.
Oh, really? Yeah, because now, you know, like if you want to conform to the groupthink, you have to beat up on Trump, and then everybody goes like, yeah. But the danger in that is that they're lapping up all the psyops that are coming against Trump. Like whatever, like this, oh, Trump has declined 39%. Well, Trump has declined 39%. Everybody agrees. And so that's where I see a certain danger, but hopefully every trend, everything has a life cycle. So at some point, I hope that goes away, because it's almost unbearable. It's like the most predictable thing is if you listen to anybody out there today, but anybody, they're going to be beating up on Trump, and they're going to formulate their analysis in such a way to dump everything on Trump. Everything is bad, and if he's done something good, well, yeah, that's because he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. He's very vain. He wants people to like him. Oh, he wants real estate development project. He's transactional. God forbid that the man has done something right because it's the right thing to do. You can't say that, otherwise.
So Alex, So
let me, Tommy, if I may come in here, right? Just about the groupthink, my own experience. So, as a traditional old school British lefty, surrounded by people from that political demographic, including my cousins, my wonderful, fabulous cousins, who tell me that Trump is the worst president ever. He's the worst president ever. And I'm like,
at least.
He's so bad. He's negotiating peace between Ukraine and Russia so we don't have nuclear war. That's how awful he is. Yeah, well, that doesn't count because of Gaza. And then I say to them, you're absolutely right. The peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan, who cares about that? The peace treaty between Cambodia and Thailand, who cares about that? Rwanda and Congo, 7 million killed, who cares about dead Africans? They go silent. Because there's no.
Yeah, but he wants real estate deals there,
in the Congo.
Exactly. No, it's only he only brought about peace because he wanted to do trade. And I said,
King cannot concern himself with the opinions of the people. The king has to fight. The king has to play the sport of kings and fight the great game of management, who are the ones that manage all of this messaging. The king cannot concern himself with that. What he has to do is do things that actually impact the people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he has to do.
It's funny. I misinterpreted what you said earlier, Alex, about Trump having declined, because Lawrence O'Donnell wasn't the one. Lawrence O'Donnell, I bring him up because he's actually out there now bringing up the slop that Trump is declining physically. They're bringing that one out of the from the grave, and that guy. I mean, I don't care if he has TD. It's generous to say that he has Trump derangement syndrome. Like, it's generous. The ungenerous thing is that obviously he's a CIA asset. And one of the things that EM brought up to me, just as an aside, the other day, is that when we're talking about things coming out of the United States, it's all roads lead to Langley, and everything that's happening globally, all roads lead to London. We have to start really drilling into this, because it's very clear that our intelligence agencies are now operating and signaling to the world, that we are getting prepared for taking out the evil creamsicle Mussolini.
Yes. Yeah. This is what the sedition was. This is what the financial stuff is. This is okay. I don't know how to map it exactly, but I would almost guarantee you that the Comex, flipping the breaker on Comex, hurt some people that were on the side behind the sedition argument. It's like, we can hurt you. You want to do this? You want to go to civil war? You want to try and coup the president of the United States through violence by telling the military to disobey lawful orders? And by the way, I swore that oath more than once in my life. I swore an oath to the Constitution of the United States and to obey the orders of the president of the United States. I swore that's in the same oath.
Isn't it the legal orders?
It's to obey the orders of the president of the United States, not the lawful legal orders. Who interprets that? See, what people don't understand is that every time I've been there, I've been in the command center when we were trying to get a Hellfire missile. This is with just a colonel, right? Full bird colonel. Trying to get a Hellfire missile on a guy we had watched on ISR do horrible shit and set up some way worse shit. It took us 12 hours to get approval to fire that one Hellfire missile on it. Now, when it did, it was nighttime. We saw it under, blackout. It was glorious. His motorcycle went 300 feet in the air. Anyways, sorry, I digress. But, point is that to think for a second that the president of the United States or the secretary of war now, which, those two are the only ones that have enumerated powers in the system. The rest of the combatant commanders, et cetera, are very restricted in the kind of things they can do. to think that they don't have an entire panel of attorneys advising them on absolutely everything that they say and do that relates to the U.S. military and the U.S. State Department, by the way, because, oh, by the way, even in times of war, most U.S. military assets actually fall under the leadership of the Department of State, not under the military. All of these operate, so everything that the U.S. military does around the world at any level, and again, this was a full-blood colonel that had to have 2 lawyers in the room in a freaking theater of war to try and get approvals from the attorneys with legal approval, just to fire a Hellfire missile on a guy that we knew was a bad guy. To think that the President of the United States is sitting there giving unlawful orders that haven't walked through a bank of frickin' attorneys is a ludicrous thought. Mm-hmm. And everybody below him who receives that order, every general, every admiral, every colonel, every lieutenant colonel is about the lowest what I've seen with the lawyers, but even majors at the company level and the battalion level have them, etc. There is the U.S. military, this is also part of why we don't win wars anymore, is all riddled through with lawyers who have to give approvals to these officers to make decisions. Otherwise, the officer gets his ass hemmed up. So this whole thing, and Mark Kelly knew that. He was a naval officer, right? Mm-hmm. They knew exactly what they were saying and doing. They knew that they were exactly trying to incite a thing that no military person in their right mind who has any experience at all would ever imagine. Right? When it comes down to unlawful orders might come from the top, but that's not generally where unlawful orders happen. They happen at the tactical level in battle, where somebody in the heat of the moment or somebody's got an agenda, etc. And you have you have to follow the lawful legal orders. But who the hell am I, even as a general, to question the President of the United States when he gives me an order that fits within the letter of the law, the UCMJ, the Constitution, etc.? See, this wasn't about getting people to question the orders of the President of the United States. It was to give people the legal argument to disobey the President of the United States no matter what, because then they're going to have to argue out, well, is that a lawful or an unlawful order? And that can happen for years. And what does it do? It takes the U.S. military off the table and out of play. Right? Well, when do you do that in a country? Because, by the way, any serious country is this way. When do you do that? Right before you're about to mount a coup. You drop this bomb into the military, and what is it? And Tom and Alex, we've talked this, and I think Rich as well. This is the ultimate loyalty test. Because bad guys are enemies' loyalty tests too. Because what's happening is lines are being drawn. They have now declared, when we changed the name to the Department of War, when we blew up their little boats in the Gulf of America, when we moved an aircraft carrier group, got to forget, aircraft carriers don't go alone. We didn't move an aircraft carrier into the Gulf of America. We moved an entire carrier group into the Gulf of America. That's 30 some odd ships, that's subs, that's hundreds of aircraft, overhead, all of that. We declared war on the intelligence agencies. We will meet you with force. So what did they do? Sedition.
Yeah, which is what they have. That's their battle
right?
space.
That's right.
They're
now
defining
here's the
the battle
deal.
space.
It's got to get paid for, because unlike the U.S. military gets a paycheck from the U.S. government, the bad guys got to move all kinds of money around through all kinds of shell things and obligations, relationships, and different asset classes, etc., to pay for whatever they're going to do that actually feeds and drives that the coup itself. And the killing of the 2 National Guardsmen by a former CIA contractor in Afghanistan, all of it's tied in. None of that's coincidental.
No,
they are committed. The city of London and Brussels are fully committed to war in the United States now. Mm-hmm. And now it's a matter of how does that shape up? How does that play out? Who's funding it? How's it getting funded? And of course, quote unquote white hats, I don't want to say good guys, but the white hats are going to try and figure out the next level of, okay, how's this going to get funded? They've declared it. They've openly said it publicly for the whole world to see. How are they going to fund it? And can we impact that?
Yep. No, I don't have anything to say other than, that's exactly what I'm saying. And before we hit record this afternoon, we were in the pre-roll. I asked DM what he thought about, where we were in terms of how close we were to actual kinetic war here in the United States. He and I disagreed. I thought it was, coming earlier, much earlier than he says it is. But I can see the groundwork being laid that they're not, that they're now committed to it. Like this, I don't have a military background, guys. I just, like everybody else, I'm just watching things, and then I make my call, and my calls were based on what I'm seeing, and not necessarily on the logistics of the mechanisms by which these things actually have to play themselves out, because I don't have any experience in that. I'm just like, here we are. This is what I'm seeing, and they're very clearly committed to it. I'm also looking at the timeline, and I'm saying to myself, with everything that Alex pointed out, that the psyops have all been turned up to 11. I can tell you that I'm a member of the $7,000 club to half of the internet at this point. If you don't know what that is, then keep the $7,000 club. In that's what 30 pieces of silver is now worth. So that means you're in the pay of the Jews. Yeah, you're now part of the $7,000 club.
Israel is paying certain influencers.
They're paying. They're 30 pieces of silver. That's the latest gripe or bullshit.
Pro-Zionist,
and I mean shit with a capital SHI. Sorry, Rich, but have to make this abundantly clear. And FYI, anybody who says anything to me that I'm on the take anywhere, I'm publicly announcing it now. That's an auto block. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a patron. I don't care if you're my wife. That's my wife. My wife was like, if Tom was such a, if Tom was, he's on everybody's payroll, then why can't I have finished floors in my house? Is always her response, which is hilarious. And then just take a picture of, I got that to fix. But the point being, folks, is that to Alex's point about all the psyops have been ramped up to 11. They're everywhere. I now block between 6 and 10 people a day on Twitter because you can't even function at this point. And you don't want those people munging up the comment threads. You want them removed from the process. With all of these non-coincidental coincidences and all of this escalatory ladder, when you see that happening, and you see the level and the rate of escalation, and the fact that if Trump does win the midterms, which I pretty much think he's going to, regardless of what the slop is at this point, then they don't have any other options on the board. That's where they wind up. So I found it really interesting that this has really accelerated since Trump did what he always does, which is on a Thursday or a Friday, changes the narrative. And what did he do? He allowed or told someone, hey, leak the 28-point peace plan and leave London and Brussels completely flat-footed. And they're still like they don't know what to do.
Yeah, while we go do these other things.
While we go do everything.
Focus on that while we go do these other infrastructure.
Exactly. And when you look at the peace plan, which you went with, I know Alex and I talked about earlier, and I think we've all talked about, we talked about last week with Susan, that was apparently the framework that Putin and Trump agreed to back in Alaska. In August, which means that they've had this thing in their back pocket for 4 months. So they've allowed this bullshit to accelerate. So this is almost like they've been inviting the criticism in order to get everybody to out themselves and escalate, so that they go, oh, by the way, fuck you, we're moving towards peace. And then you get to watch all the influences on both sides. You get to watch all the pro-Russian guys crash out because all of their analysis is off, because they're all like telling you the pro-Russian, and everything from American commentators to European commentators to Russian commentators, it's all nonsense. Like, because they're now angry that their read of Trump has been wrong for the last 4 months, right? And then you have all the pro-American, then you have all the neocons who now had to out themselves that, well, Trump can't possibly do this, right? Because he's the worst president who ever walked the face of the earth. He's creamsicle Mussolini, yada, yada, yada. Can't have that happen, right? So you're watching everybody just lose their minds and not give him credit for anything. And then there's the other ones in the middle going, well, the Russians aren't going to agree to any of this if they don't get Odessa. I'm like, why would, like as we talked about last week, like the framework for that deal was really obvious, that all the guarantees are European and NATO related. In 5 years, the Russians are going to be able to hold a referendum in Odessa and take Odessa. They're not going to have to shoot a bullet.
Same thing with
that framework. So then the big one that's been running all week has been, well, neocon Marco Rubio is destroying the peace process. I'm like, no, You got the Ukrainians to actually agree to something. It's shit, and they're going to send it to the Russians, and the Russians are going to red blue pen it and send it back and go no.
And by the way, all the counter fraud stuff that's going on in Ukraine right now with the U.S. military is actually under the leadership of the State Department.
Yes, exactly.
Rubio's people.
Yeah, I
which
know.
is tied into Besset's people in the Treasury, etc.
Yes,
right?
yes.
People really need to take a look at FinCEN.
Yeah.
And the kind of information that FinCEN has.
FinCEN being the financial
center.
Yeah, the financial crimes enforcement.
Well, FinCEN is what keeps the ledger of all transactions that are conducted in dollars above, I think it's $10,000. Might be down lower than that now, $4,000 or $5,000.
Okay, all right, Alex, you want to comment on the Ukrainian peace plan? How's it going? Like tying in with what Tom and Ian were saying.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing going on at the moment. And I think that Trump is running circles around all these warmongering Europeans and
Americans.
This anti-corruption probe is just kryptonite for them.
Part 2 coming soon. Subscribe, comment, like.
What we know is probably nothing compared to what's going on.